From the Crossbreed Holster Studios, this is Armed American Radio.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
We're making the Second Amendment great again.
I am a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment.
Educating, informing, and entertaining responsibly armed citizens from coast to coast. Here is your host of Armed American Radio, Mark Walters.
Armed American Radio, Hour 3. Welcome inside these Monster Cast studios, the Crossbreed Holster Studios. As you know, if you've been listening to the program for the last 2 hours, I am taping this program yesterday, bringing it to you today, live from Chicago from the Gun Rights Policy Conference, the 33rd annual what the conference is also known as the GRPC. That's Gun Rights Policy Conference. We are in the belly of the beast in Chicago, and it's such a beautiful thing to be in Chicago because I've seen the pictures of the checks that Rahm Emanuel has had to write to the Second Amendment Foundation when they lose every case the Second Amendment Foundation brings against them in Chicago. So to answer your question, that's why we're here, making our presence well known. So I want to welcome you back inside the Armed American Radio Crossbreed Holster Studios as we move to Hour 3. Here's what we've been doing. We've got the best of the best activists and speakers in the country, pro-firearms rights, pro-freedom, anywhere, not just the country, anywhere in the world, and they are all right here, which is why I elected to tape the program today, bring you some of the best throughout the next couple or throughout the previous 2 hours and now into this upcoming hour. So let me do this as I welcome you into the show. I want to get a little bit of business out of the way because that's how we pay the bills. And I want you to remember that the USCCA gun giveaway that I've been telling you about, told you about it earlier in the last segment, or in the last hour. I'm going to tell you about it, and I've been telling you about it for about a week or two. If you want to win it big, you've got to hurry. The USCCA wants to give you 10 free chances to win the gun of your dreams. You know what I'm talking about. Just head over to armedandresponsible.com, armedandresponsible.com to instantly lock in those 10 entries to win right now. This is your last chance. Welcome back inside the Armed American Radio Studios. We're going to do something fun now. The book is called Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical. Radical what? The author, Dan Wos, is with me. Dan, you've never joined me on the program. You're here at the GRPC. This is what I love about coming to this conference. How the heck are you?
I'm excellent. Great to meet you, and we're doing this right off the cuff. So
let's start with this. I love the title of the book, and I'm going to be very honest with you. Whenever I have an author on the program, I do them the courtesy of actually reading their book. I have Ann Coulter on the program, I read her book. It doesn't matter who it is, I read the book. And that's just the courteous thing to do for the author. Because this is happening now in real time, and you just handed me the book and it's signed, I love that. Thank you for that, by the way. I've not had a chance to read it, but let me take away some things from the title. Good Gun, Bad Guy is pretty straightforward. Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical for the subtitle. But you don't say radical what? Anti-gun radical. Radical what?
I think when we say anti-gun, we're already assuming that they are not pro-gun. And there's a difference between being a non-gun owner or an anti-gunner. So an anti-gunner, and what I specifically talk about, well, let me break it down like this. There's the anti-gunner, which is people who just don't have guns, they don't own guns, they don't necessarily, they don't know a heck of a lot about guns, but they know that they scare them, and they don't necessarily want them, the anti-gunner. The anti-gun radical or the anti-Second Amendment radical are people who understand guns, and they don't want you to have them. And they'll do anything they can to fight for legislation that will remove or deter your right of having a gun.
All right, so let me jump in here for a second because we've never talked before, and I love this. I love where we're going with this because I think we're on the same page. If I read you correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do, there's a difference between someone who's anti-gun and someone who's anti-Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
Someone who's anti-gun says, you know what, guns aren't for me. I don't like guns.
Right.
Someone who's anti-Second Amendment says, I don't like guns, and not only do I like guns, guns shouldn't be here. The Second Amendment shouldn't be here, and it needs to be wiped out, and no one should have a right to own guns. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Basically, yes. And radical is an extremist view where, they won't compromise their beliefs or their values and the way they feel about guns. So rather than take a different position on guns, they want you to get rid of yours. And if you don't, they're going to lobby and they're going to do whatever they can to make you get rid of your guns.
Will they compromise the positions on the things that they do like? Well, like their right to free speech, if they happen to disagree with you, there's no compromise with these people at all. So I know where you're going with your subtitle here, and that is the anti-gun radical. You didn't say the anti-gun radical leftist. You said the anti-gun radical.
That's true.
And what that means, that implies to me that anti-gun and anti-sex, and both of them, but that is the extreme position in today's day and age, and the way that narrative has been formed. Am I right? With respect
to the anti-gun conversation. Yes, exactly. And you said something that was really interesting, and I was talking to, call him a friend. There's somebody on the left, and they're saying, boy, you guys don't, you never want it, you'll never compromise. You never compromise. And I said, would you, which of your values would you compromise on? Is it because I won't?
Well, see, Dan, it's like this to me, and you don't know this enough about me. I don't know if you've ever heard the show over the last 10 years, but compromise to a leftist radical means agree with me or the hell with you.
Absolutely.
There is no compromise. And if you want to see truth, if you want to see whether I'm right about that, look at any conservative trying to speak at any college campus. Go out to Berkeley and try to talk about this subject. Try to sell your book at Berkeley and see what happens to you. They're going to shut you down. And they're going to call you radical, and they're going to determine that what you have to say shouldn't be heard because it doesn't agree with their values. Now, I could go into an argument and say liberals and progressives have no values, but that's a whole different radio program.
Well,
and
Mark,
we don't have time.
When did the Constitution become a problem?
It didn't, unless you hate it. Right?
Exactly.
Agree? Unless you hate it, then it's a problem.
That's my point.
But they love their own constitutional right to assemble and to speak freely. Here's a question for you as an author. At what point in time do you think we're going to get to the left trying to, let's use, I use this as an example all the time, Huck Finn. I had to read Huckleberry Finn when I was a kid. Oh, there's some bad language in Huckleberry Finn. In today's day and age.
Sure.
To me, the leftist radical is too stupid to understand the literary genius of Mark Twain in Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah.
Is that next? Are we not going to be able to read Huck Finn because a particular mindset doesn't like the language? These are the same people that are tearing monuments down to try to destroy our history. And they're doing the same thing with our firearms freedoms.
The short answer is I believe yes. I mean, that's exactly the... see, they understand rights, and they know that they can't change things legislatively all the time, like the First Amendment. So what they use is they'll create things like political correctness. Mm-hmm. So now political correctness is a way to kind of subvert a right, the First Amendment, but because they know they can't do it legislatively. So Second Amendment works the same way for them. They don't like it because it doesn't, it scares them or whatever. So they'll find ways around it, and they'll find ways to chip away at the edges and restrict you without legislatively getting rid of the Second Amendment.
Well, that's exactly how they're going to do it. And we made up the term here on the show a number of years ago. We call it incrementalization.
Sure.
They're just coming after you.
Sure.
And we make up words here on the show, so if you want to do it, as long as it's FCC good, we're good. Let's go through some of the table of contents in your book right here. I know somebody who could have written this. Me.
Okay.
All right. You start off with fear of guns. I like that.
Yeah.
Because that, I believe, is where this begins. With an inherent fear of guns. Yeah. Everything that follows stems from that. But then how do we define fear of guns? I think we did that at the opening of the segment, right? When we talked about the fear of gun or Second Amendment, there's a difference between the two.
Yeah. And let me just explain this. Here's my analogy of gun fear. What the left will use is two different. They'll use our emotions against us. They'll use people's emotions.
No, we're good.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. We're running out. We've got about a minute and 20 seconds.
Okay.
So.
They'll use people's emotions. They use the strongest human emotions that they know of, which is fear and hate. People say love is strong emotion, but fear.
Not when it comes to fight. Not when it comes to this fight. It's fear and hate.
Fear and hate.
Correct.
So they'll use fear and make people scared to death of guns. People who don't know any better, but they'll use hate against gun owners. So the person who doesn't own guns will be hateful and angry toward you because they're taught to believe that you are intentionally and recklessly putting them in danger. So you take that fear,
and then that's where you go into creating the narrative. They want to change the narrative, the whole 9 yards. Hey, listen, Dan, it's fantastic. I can't wait to bring you back, and I can't wait to read it, then bring you back. I hate to go just off of the table of contents, but we're getting ready to end this segment on Armed American Radio's Monster Cast from the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Chicago. The book is Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lines of the Anti-Gun Radical by Dan Wos. Dan, you've got about 15 seconds. Where can people buy the book?
GoodGunBadGuy.com, GoodGunBadGuy.net, or search Good Gun Bad Guy on Amazon.
Done deal. Dan Wos,
Thanks,
thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here at the Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Thank you.
The 33rd edition. It's hard to believe. Armed American Radio's monster broadcast in these Crossbreed Holster studios will be back from Chicago and the Gun Rights Policy Conference at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare. Oh, give me about 4 to 5 minutes to conduct some business. We will be back right after this. I have absolutely no idea who I'm putting in the seat next. That's the beauty of it. Don't go away. I'll be back.